In the name of the one who loves the beloved and love itself. Amen. My mind has been really immersed in the annual meeting from last week, which I think many of you were at, and also the vestry retreat that's been going on this weekend. And so I'm looking for the content of my sermon in amongst all of those thoughts. So what comes out, okay? I hope you'll go with me on this. Mathetes. Mathetes. I'm going to pause. You can Google it if you like. Mathetes, as it's anglicized. But it is the Koine Greek, the common Greek word for disciple. You'll notice, though, as I spelled it out, that it also spelled math. M-A-T-H. It's the same word that we get the word math from. The word for disciple is the same as the word for math. Why is that? It's because the initial Greek word for disciple means to work something out. To work something out. Just like a math problem. Except there's a real sense in the word mathetes that you're working something out under the oversight of an expert. You have somebody who's leading you and helping you to work something out. And what you're working out is your way of being in the world. Whereas in math, what you're working out is that 1 and 1 equals 2. It's funny, for Peter, in this gospel, the math didn't work. He discovered that the mathematics of discipleship is different than arithmetic. I really enjoyed Kathy reminding us about the passage that happens right before this, right before today's gospel reading. In that passage, Peter realizes that Jesus is the Messiah. 1. I think he also has in his mind that they are occupied by the Romans. 2. And then I think that he thinks our movement is growing. 3. 1 plus 2 plus 3 should equal 6, surely. We're going to move victoriously towards victory over the Romans and defeat them. So when Jesus starts saying, I'm going to suffer, the math just doesn't work for Peter. He's already worked it out in his head. This is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. He's the Messiah. We're occupied. Our movement's growing. We're going to win. So Jesus has to engage in an act of leadership that he decided needed to be decisive. And he is giving Peter an experience of discipleship that he's never going to forget. No. That's not the way that the math of discipleship works. We are not heading inexorably towards victory. There's going to be suffering on this path. Get behind me, Satan. That's not divine thinking. You worked out the arithmetic of your discipleship and you got the wrong answer. He goes on to say, if you want to save your life, you'll lose it. It turns out that we add in discipleship by subtraction. We add by subtraction. Sometimes we have to lose, or perhaps I might say unlearn something, before we can really work out what it is to be a disciple of Christ. So, I beg your forgiveness for this flight of fancy, but one of the greatest discipleship stories in modern literature is obviously Luke Skywalker and Yoda in the Star Wars movie, where Luke is going to look for a teacher who's going to teach him to be a great warrior and use his Jedi powers to defeat the Empire. Luke thinks that his discipleship, his followership of Yoda, is going to be about acquiring power. And yes, it's a science fiction movie and that's all going to happen. But what we discover in the process of his learning is that he will have to unlearn what he's learned first. You will have to unlearn what you have learned. That's my Yoda. Sorry, it's not very good. You will have to unlearn what you have learned. Sounds a bit more like Nelson Mandela, actually. I'm sorry. But Luke has learned abandonment. Luke has learned fear. Luke has learned not to believe in himself. Luke has learned that his father is not there for him, and then when he discovers him, that his father is a nightmare figure. Luke has to unlearn and perhaps even give up patterns of thinking that he's acquired throughout his life in order to become the person he is to be. His discipleship, his following Yoda, is not about acquiring power. It's about shedding things. It's about letting them go. It's about losing the life that he had. It's about having the courage to do that in order to step into a new reality that's better. So you will have to lose your life in order to gain it. I wonder what we have to unlearn. I wonder what we have to let die. I wonder what patterns of thinking we've acquired over a lifetime about what victory looks like or a successful life looks like. I wonder if we have to unlearn the lessons of the acquisition of money in order to be safe and comfortable. When we contemplate our place in society next to other people, perhaps we have to unlearn the fact that we deserve what we have earned and recognize that we're part of a society that is profoundly unequal. Perhaps we have to unlearn the process of combat and anger that takes place in our confrontations with others. Perhaps we have to unlearn the idea of holding grudges. It's really difficult to do all of that. These are values that have been deeply ingrained in us since childhood. These are ways of being that we've been told to acquire. But I wonder if you've ever had the experience of actually getting to a point of recognizing that some animosity, some grudge, some anger that you've been holding against somebody else is not actually serving you anymore, and you've just decided to put it down, let it go, let it die, give it up. Sometimes that takes a lot of work, prayerful work, work in therapy, work in pastoral care. But when I've got to the point when I've been able to let go of something that I thought defined my life and I had to hold on to it, when I've been able to let that go, I have discovered that it's an immense relief. It's immensely freeing. And I can find energy, or even potentially new life, in the aftermath of that spiritual process of putting something down. We add by subtraction. What is it that you need to let go? I don't know you. I don't know what's in your heart. What burden are you carrying? What description of life are you holding on to that's really not serving you anymore? What do you need to subtract or to just let die? That's what we're trying to work out in our discipleship. I really love the idea that discipleship is at the heart of our cathedral's mission statement. We are here to make disciples, to serve Christ and the world. I wonder if we can fully grow into that idea. If we as a cathedral can be a school of disciples, a place where people come to work out what their followership of Jesus looks like, to let go of things, to be transformed by the love of Christ, and then to be sent into the world to serve. I actually want to say that I have noticed that process unfolding in all sorts of different places in the life of the cathedral since I've been your dean, even though we've been half shut down because of COVID. I've noticed people wrestling with what it means to be a pastor in Stephen's ministry, figuring out how to serve others and learn how to live into that role. A part of that process of becoming a Stephen's minister is letting go of some of the assumptions you have about what it is to be a pastor. Letting go of things in order to learn new things. In our Thursday night at the cathedral activities, we've been studying sacred ground, looking at the place of race in our culture. I've had a number of members of the congregation say to me that they never knew some of the stories of black lives in the history of our nation. They never knew what people lived through. That studying the historical texts of sacred ground is beginning to help them to let go of patterns of white supremacy that they did not choose for themselves, but that they found themselves occupying because it's just in the air. These things look like discipleship to me. Really, really trying to work out what it means to follow Jesus in a way that is genuinely transforming. So in this season of Lent, I invite you to figure out what you need to subtract in order to add up to being a disciple of Christ. What you need to let go of in order to let the love of Christ fill your life, in order to be transformed. Amen.